Hey, I'm Olivia, and you're listening to Soarin Around WDW. All right, so today we have our dad here joining us on the podcast. Welcome back, Dad. Um, he is going to help us talk through our first Park of the Present episode for Magic Kingdom, which is what y'all voted for on Instagram. So obviously, this is a huge park with a lot of attractions, a lot of restaurants, a lot of shows. So we're going to break this down into more than one episode just to kind of help it not be such a lengthy episode since we are trying to stay, within our time limit, since y'all usually are great about giving our hour-long episodes a listen. But welcome back, Dad.
Thank you. It's great to be back, and I'm excited to go through all these attractions and restaurants, and yeah, it should be fun.
Yes. So we are going to start off in Adventureland, and we're going to kind of work our way, I guess, clockwise from there around the park. And so starting in Adventureland only has a few attractions, but I was surprised when I was doing my research how many of them were opening day and how much has not changed in Adventureland over the years. So starting off with what you first walk into when you walk into Adventureland on the left-hand side is the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse, and that was an opening day attraction for Disney World. It's a walkthrough attraction. If you all have never been to it, you can't do it if you are in a wheelchair or a stroller. You have to be able to walk. There's a total of 116 steps. And this was based on a Disney movie. There was an original 1940s movie, but then Disney recreated the movie in 1960, which I remember very fondly growing up watching this movie. You've seen this a few times, right? Dad, did you used to watch it as a kid too?
Not so much as a kid, but as an adult with you, I've seen it a number of times. I've probably seen it at least 5 or 6 times. I love the movie.
Yeah, I love the movie too. And then it was obviously based on the book, which was written in 1812. When I looked that up, I was surprised how old that book was. But
Yes.
basically, it's about this family that gets shipwrecked on this island, and they end up having to build their own place to live there. And they build this amazing tree house. And if you've ever been in it, it's really cool as a kid. I definitely dreamed about living in that tree house and then seeing it at Disney World, dreamed of staying in that overnight at Magic Kingdom for sure. But it's a really fun one. And there is one at Disneyland. There was a Swiss Family Robinson treehouse there. They eventually changed it to Tarzan. And then there's also at Disneyland Paris and Disneyland Tokyo. So when you went to Disneyland, did you go up in the treehouse? Do you remember?
I don't think we did. We were kind of limited, I think, to again. I think I told you on the other podcast I was 10, so I don't. I would think I would have really remembered going up in that, and I don't think we did because that would have been something I think a 10-year-old boy would really remember. He'd like to have a fort
Yeah.
like that, in his backyard. I don't remember going in it, but I do know that I think they changed it to, like you said, to Tarzan's treehouse a while back, and then I think they've switched it up again recently to kind of like a more of a modern day Swiss Family Robinson treehouse. I think I read that somewhere that the Tarzan treehouse is no longer there.
Yeah,
They,
I
yeah,
think you're right because I read when I was looking up this up last night that they were going to do this new Disney Plus series, a new like modern version of Swiss Family Robinson and make it into a show. But then the creator got taken by Sony. And so they ended up like nixing the show, but they had already planned to switch Disneyland's Treehouse back. So I don't know
yeah.
where they're at if they're not doing the show at all, but I think you're right. I think it's no longer Tarzan. And when Maddie and I went to Disneyland in 2018, we did walk up in the Tarzan treehouse. I like going up in the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse at Disney World too. It's harder now that we have kids because they can't walk up all the steps in your hall and, we'd be carrying them up the steps. But
Sure.
um, the Tarzan treehouse was neat. I mean, we're definitely big Tarzan fans. So we'll be interested to see when we go back in June what the difference is now that they've moved it over or back to this more modern version. of the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse. But
Right,
yeah, I
right.
do. We went in this almost every, I feel like we always walked up in this. We were kind of like, why not when we were younger?
Always, yeah. I really enjoyed it, and you know, it's 6 stories high. I was surprised. I knew it was high because when you probably remember when you get to the top, you get a pretty good view of
Yeah.
all of Adventureland and the Jungle Cruise River. Um, but if you're afraid of heights, it gets a little, it's not, you're completely safe up there. But you're single file, and you got people kind of, when it's busy, it can be people right behind you, right in front of you, and it's if you can get on it in a little slower time, maybe right off the bat when you first get in the park or something, if you want to just kind of work your way around, through the Magic Kingdom. That way you can kind of stop and enjoy and kind of see all the different little vignettes that they have as you go up and around and down the treehouse. It's pretty cool. Even the way they haul the water up to the top of the tree and everything is pretty ingenious.
Yeah.
And so I know as a person that kind of likes looking at mechanical things and how things work. I was always pretty impressed with that, even as an adult. Like, wow, this is pretty cool how they did it, and it's pretty much close to a carbon copy of what they had in the movie, from what I gather.
Yeah, it does remind me a lot. I'd have to watch the movie again, which I haven't in a long time. I actually bought it on Blu-ray, if you can believe it or not. So like not
Oh
that
wow,
long ago.
that's great.
Um Probably 10 years ago and before Disney Plus was a thing. And then now it's on Disney Plus. So I definitely want to rewatch it. It came out around the same time as like Pollyanna and a few other of like my favorite classic Disney movies.
Yes,
Um but yeah, so that's definitely one that we recommend checking out. It almost never has like a wait, but like yeah, like Dad was saying, you have to kind of see how many people are up there and how long it might take you to get through, but you could do it fairly quickly if you wanted to, but there's a lot to see and a lot to look at from the view up there for sure.
yes, absolutely.
Um, and then moving on forward to the Enchanted Tiki Room. So this was also an opening day attraction, and I know we try not to talk too much about everything at Disneyland, but I think a lot of these things we started there, so we kind of have to talk back a little bit. But this is a sit down show, and currently it's back to similar to the original show. They did have a version which we'll talk about that was called the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management that ran from 1998 to 2011, which we saw many times as well. But this did originally start at Disneyland in 1963. And prior to that, there was this antique mechanical singing toy bird that Walt Disney purchased in New Orleans, Louisiana, which I thought was really cool. And that's kind of where he started to get this idea for these mechanical birds or doing something with birds in the park. And then I was reading that it was initially supposed to be a restaurant with real birds, but then someone said, well, mechanical birds are cheaper, and then birds wouldn't poop in the food when people were eating. So they decided to go that route. And initially, we're going to call it this Legends of the Enchanted Tiki. And he brought in the Sherman brothers, who are well-known Disney stars for everything from Mary Poppins to, I mean, almost anything they had their hands in back in the day. And they wrote the Tiki Room song, and decided to change it from the restaurant to an attraction, which is really cool. And at Disneyland, did you do Tiki Room when you went there?
We did. Yes,
Okay.
we saw that in 1970, and it was the one as it is now at Magic Kingdom. It's back to the original. I remember seeing it as a kid, and if I might have been a teenager, then it was maybe a little cheesy. But
Hokey, yeah.
as a 10-year-old kid, and my sister was 3, even my sisters being just a couple years older, we all thought it was cool because we're at Disney, and it was all new experience for people from Alpena, Michigan. So it
Yeah.
was it was great. Yeah, I remember seeing it, and we enjoyed it.
Yeah, and this is like something really cool that I was reading was, well, initially it was chairs and then they changed it to the benches that it is today, but the Tiki Room at Disneyland is the only attraction that has its own restrooms inside the attraction because it was supposed to be a restaurant. And
Right.
then it also was the first attraction to feature the audio animatronics as well as to offer air conditioning, which I thought was interesting. And then something else that I was like, oh, I never thought about this, but now, yeah, that's true, is each of the four birds represented, their colors represented the country of their origin. So Jose was red, white, and green. Michael was right, white and green. Pierre was blue, white, and red. Fritz was black, white, and red. So just like from Germany, Paris, obviously different countries, which was really cool. And I was like, oh yeah, I never really thought about that. Like they obviously spoke in the accents, but I didn't realize their colors. Like as a kid, I think that's just something you don't really catch. But I thought that was really neat. And then Disney World's initial version was an exact copy of Disneyland, except for the pre-show. And then when it became under new management in 1998, the first year of attendance spiked and then proceeded to go way down, which was interesting to read because I always felt like when it switched to under new management that it was quite a busy attraction, or we waited at least for it, but maybe I'm remembering wrong.
Yeah, I think a lot of people complained about this is boring. Oh, after they started bringing in Space Mountain and all these other really cool attractions, and the little tiki bird attraction. I don't think it was very well attended. I think it really got people, and then Imagineers said, "Well, let's just plus it. Let's make it better. Let's make it funny. Let's add some humor." And then that's when they came out with the under new management. That's the one you probably remember as a
Yeah.
child because that's about when we started going to Disney on a pretty regular basis. 99 and on from there. So that's the one you probably remember. And I believe it was called in 1971. The original name was called Tropical Serenade.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then in 1993, they called it the Enchanted Tiki Birds. And then under new management was in 98. And now it's just back to, I guess, Enchanted Tiki Room
Yeah,
from
yeah.
what I gather and I think what you've done some research obviously on that too. But yeah, so you know, it's again, it's a kind of I would say a Disney staple. I think there'd be a lot of pushback if they got, if
Rid
they
of
closed
it.
that attraction. Um,
Yeah.
kind of like the uh, what was the ride in Fantasyland that they call Mr. Toad. If
Yeah.
it's like Mr. Toad, all the pushback they got for that, this would probably be even worse because this is something that Walt was very involved in. It was, like you said, the first animatronic, and then of course now there's animatronics everywhere now, and they're very advanced. But yeah, so it's I'm sure more than likely things can change, but I think they'll probably try to keep that around, as long as they can.
Yeah, and that's in the under new management, the difference really was like Yago and Zazu, and it was a lot more upbeat music, and they had this tiki goddess come out of the middle, and she was kind of a little scary, and anyway, it was like a little bit more upbeat, like you were saying, and then I guess what put it to an end, which I didn't know, they were like already talking about what they should do with it because the attendance wasn't great, but there was a fire that broke out. There was a small attic fire, and then sprinklers went off to put it out. And so they decided, okay, we already have to replace a bunch of stuff. Let's just put it back to how it was originally. And there was a rumor that the Yago figure was definitely very damaged. And that's kind of what was like the icing on the cake to say, all right, we're getting rid of Yago and Zazu. But everything else was pretty quiet about like what happened. So that's when they switched it back,
Right,
I guess, which I
right.
I kind of remember hering about, but
Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, and it's kind of funny. I didn't know this. I did a little research. The the I don't know what you'd call it. I guess it was the goddess that comes out of the planter in the middle that kind of
yeah.
freaked all the little kids out, because it was a completely different show than the original. The goddess name is UH-OA, and she was called the Tiki Goddess of Disaster.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
I didn't know that. So these are all things you do a little research. Oh, that's what they called her. I don't know if they ever really spelled that out in the show. I don't remember that, but
I don't either.
that's kind of the backstory there. So yeah, she was
And
she was trouble.
somebody was saying that if you go and eat at the Polynesian, I think it's at the Polynesian, and you order some certain drink, which obviously we don't do special drinks and stuff like that really ever at Disney. But that's called that name. So I bet you,
Oh,
I guess
okay.
that's how it's like linked. They kind of like kept it alive a little bit.
Yeah,
But
that's
okay.
correct.
Cool. That's cool. So yeah, that's definitely one that, like you said, I doubt they'll get rid of because it was definitely one that Walt was really into, but my kids have never seen it. I think that there's some of these things that have come up as I'm going through this, and I'm like, I really just need to take Eiley to see it once just to say she's done it and we sit in it and do it. But yeah, so that is one. And then moving to Jungle Cruise. So this was another opening day attraction. So all three of these so far have all been opening day. It's a boat ride. If you've never been on Jungle Cruise, I feel like a lot of people know it now because of the newer Disney movie with The Rock, which was good. Maddie actually really likes that movie, and he had never been on the Jungle Cruise until after that movie. And then we
Oh,
went on
wow.
it once, and I couldn't believe
Wow.
that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was an opening day attraction. It was the only Adventureland attraction to exist on opening day at Disneyland. And it was this elaborate river ride where guests sat in the boats and kind of took you through the waterways of the man-made jungle that Walt created. Originally, I guess he had hoped real life animals would be there, but then that, got nixed pretty quick as it wasn't super safe. And I guess the Imagineers, there were some cool quotes on the Walt Disney website from that they have the what's it called? The museum in San Francisco that Maddie and I have been to, which is really, really cool. But I guess they have this really cool website and they had some cool quotes that have a bunch of the Imagineers over the years and interesting facts about the rides. And they said that they would call different cities to see if they were tearing out trees for improvements and they would go buy them. And then they'd also just drive around to places in Southern California and see these big trees, go up to them and ask them, can we just take these trees? We'll give you $200 and carry it away. I guess there was a house in Beverly Hills that had a tree in its front yard. And so then a couple of Imagineers pulled over and asked the lady, can we take this out and replace it with a flower bed? And she said, sure. So they literally just like dug the tree out, took it away, and replaced it with a flower bed. And that's how a bunch of the trees in Disneyland came to be, which was super interesting.
I believe it. Yeah.
Um, and then guests, obviously on the boat ride, if you've never been on it, there's a bunch of animatronics that you ride past. But initially, it was inspired from a 1951 movie called The African Queen. And it didn't have any jokes, which is hard to believe because if you've been on the Jungle Cruise now, it's basically all very hokey jokes, a lot of humor. There was like no humor on the initial ride. And then in the 1960s, there was an animator, Mark Davis, who came in and kind of revamped some of these original attractions. And so he added the, different playful animatronics that were a little more silly, and then also some of these like comedic things for the skipper narration, which has stuck today and made it even more popular of a ride. Um, and then Disney World, when they opened their version, it was very similar to Disneyland. I guess it's not an exact copy. I've only been on the Disneyland one once, obviously, so it's hard for me to remember. It seemed pretty similar, but it was a huge deal for Adventureland. Um, and is that something that you had gone on at Disneyland when you went?
Yes. Yeah, we did ride on that. Um, and from my recollection and research I did years ago, they're very, very similar.
Okay,
Maybe not
yeah.
identical, but very similar. And there's some funny things too about this, and some people may or may not know this. The boats do ride on a track. The skippers do have, they pretend they're steering and everything, and they're
Yeah.
not. They can basically just sit down, but they are operating the, forward and reverse of the motor, so they can back up if they have to, or move forward and have to kind of do their little spiel to shoot. I guess they don't shoot at the hippos anymore. They did it one time, but maybe PETA got involved and said you should be
Yeah.
shooting at the fake hippos,
Yeah.
which is kind of bizarre. A couple other things too. The four rivers that you do cross over are the Amazon, the Congo, the Nile, and the Mekong River, which is in Asia. Right, it runs along through Vietnam and China. You can probably tell which parts are which just by going through. When you're going through,
Yeah.
and the river is only 3.5 feet deep, and it's
Oh,
only
okay.
six feet deep in the hippo pool. Apparently, there's animatronics that maybe go down a little further because the hippos go up and down and stuff. And so that's 6 feet deep, but that's all it is. It's not some super deep,
River or
river.
something.
I'm
Interesting.
sure it's just
Okay.
probably just a concrete bottom, I would assume. But yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. And then in 2013, both of the US versions of the ride were given this holiday overlay, which is called the Jingle Cruise, and it was very successful. So both parks, Disneyland and Disney World had it, but Disneyland dropped the Jingle Cruise in 2017, and nobody really knows why because it was very popular, but they still do it every year at Magic Kingdom. Regan and I just did it, a couple weeks ago. We did our challenge run, and it's
Right.
very cute, different jokes, hokey, and they put different Santa hats on things and presents out. But it's kind of something different. So it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a change up from the regular ride if you go frequently and enough to know the difference. But it's pretty cute. And then this ride is also present at Disneyland Tokyo. They do have their own Jungle Cruise version. But yeah, so all three of those so far were opening day attractions. And then we move into Pirates of the Caribbean, which did not come on opening day, which we talked a little bit about when you were on the show last time, as this is one of your favorite rides.
Yes,
But it opened December 17th, 1973, so a little over 2 years after opening day. It's another boat ride. And then the idea is that initially what I guess was presented was that it's going to be this walk-through wax museum at Disneyland. And Marty Sklar, who is one of the Disney Legend Imagineers, said that that's not a good idea because then people will kind of stop and maybe notice things and go areas they're not supposed to go, and people
sure.
might miss things. So they changed it to this boat ride. And so they went ahead and did this, obviously water boat. They noticed the high capacity of It's a Small World and said, yeah, we need to do something like that where we can get a lot of people in. It's constantly moving. So they made this boat ride water trough system, and it was capable of handling over 3,000 guests per hour. And a walk-through attraction, I guess they had calculated, would only handle about 500 or so per hour. So they decided to go ahead and switch it to the boat system. So Mark Davis was a big Imagineer. Blaine Gibson was another one. And then they kind of came up with the story of the pirates. And this, a lot of people, I think, who are newer Disney fans don't realize that this ride came first before the movie. Whereas obviously, as longtime Disney people, we know that. But
Right.
initially, there was no Jack Sparrow, there was no Captain Barbossa in the ride at all. It was all original concept by the Imagineers, which is what makes it, I think, such a special ride. Um, Obviously the Pirates movies are amazing, but I think it's cool that it came first. And then another couple Imagineers that worked on this a lot were Bill Justice and Walthall Rogers, who programmed the Pirates and had a lot to do with the more advanced human audio animatronics. So in Disneyland, this opened March 18th, 1967, which was about 3.5 months after Walt Disney passed away. And then in the Magic Kingdom, on opening day, we talked about this a little bit last time, but just to review, it opened and everybody was expecting pirates, and pirates wasn't there. And then they got upset and they're like, where are the pirates? And I guess their initial thought was because Orlando is much closer to the Caribbean, they thought like nobody would really care that much about the pirates. Is that right? I know you have a little bit more insight to this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're like, oh, you guys, pirates. Even think about like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, right? It's all
Yeah.
pirates, pirates everywhere. In Florida, because there's a real history of pirates in Florida, and around the Caribbean and everything. So, yeah, they were like, oh, they're not gonna want a pirate attraction. Then you're right. People came in like, where's the pirate ride? Not everybody can run out to
Yeah.
California to go to Disneyland and go see your pirate ride. So, yeah, they put it in. I guess it's a little bit shorter and not quite as elaborate as the one in Disneyland from all the things I hear from Ultra Regan, who's been on it. And have you been on it too, Olivia?
No, when we
You
went
haven't.
out to California, it was under refurbishment, which was such a bummer. So
Oh,
we're hoping to get to go in June.
okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's a little bit better. Couple other things real quick on the pirates that I found really interesting. The queue that you walk through is supposed to be a Spanish castle called the Castillo, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Del Moro. And as you walk through it, you probably noticed, Olivia, many times the two skeletons that are playing chess
Yeah. Hmm.
as you look down into the prison. And if you look at the chess board, anybody that plays chess and understands chess, they're like in a forever checkmate, and that no matter what they would play, neither one could ever win. So it's like this eternal
Oh,
game
I
that
didn't
no
know
one would
that.
ever win. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, Yeah, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I found about that. Oh, the when they were building it and they were finally getting the inspection done on Pirates of the Caribbean, the fire inspectors were concerned about the fire in the burning village scene. They could, you
Oh,
can't have fire burning in there, and they didn't realize that it was done.
fake.
It wasn't real fire. It was done with basically a scrim and a fan and a light to make it look like fire, which is really pretty creative the way they do it because it kind of looks like fire
Yeah.
burning.
Uh-huh.
And so they explained, no, it's not fire, and they showed them how they did it, and everything was fine. I thought that was kind of interesting too.
That is interesting. That's funny. I did not know the chess, so I feel like now I haven't waited in the queue for that in a minute. I feel like we either
Right,
lightning lane it or whatever. But when we were
right.
kids, we spent a lot of time in that queue. So I definitely remember the pirates playing chess. There's a couple other things like cannons and stuff that you see. So that's cool. Yeah. And then a lot of updates have been done at Disney World, at least over the years. So they originally had the chase scene that involved the pirates running after the women in circles.
Yes.
But then they switched it. There also was a pirate called the Pooped Pirate, which was sitting next to a barrel, exhausted from pursuing, quote unquote, a woman. And then the woman was kind of inside a barrel and was peeking out at him. But in 1994, which is pretty early, the scene was changed so that it showed like pirates making off with treasure as women chased them with weapons. So it's like the opposite. And then the overweight pirate, the pooped pirate, now holds a treasure map. And the frightened woman was replaced with just a blonde woman hiding a small treasure chest with her in the barrel. And then in
Right.
2006, they had this misty waterfall projection of Davy Jones that they added. And the skull right before the drop that warned the riders basically like you were about to, experience this danger was removed. And they added Barbosa to the ship when you go down. Obviously, Captain Jack Sparrow. Later in the ride, Jack Sparrow's put throughout the ride a few times. The redhead pirate was definitely updated. That whole scene was redone. And then a new talking skull was added again because people were like, where's the talking skull that, came before the drop? That was changed in 2017. I guess the redhead pirate scene was changed in 2018. And then the misty waterfall was eventually removed because people didn't like it. If you got stuck there, you got wet. So they took that out in 2019.
Oh,
So a
okay.
lot of changes over the years.
Yeah.
I remember when they put in Jack Sparrow, and I think like as kids, there was this thing on Disney Channel or something where we saw that Johnny Depp actually went into the ride and with like surprise guests. And so every time we went on that ride for a while after that, we're like, is he here? Is he hiding? Is he there? I'm sure he never did it
Right. Yeah.
again.
I remember that.
But
Yeah.
as kids, I definitely remember being like, oh man, he's gonna pop out any second now.
Sure.
Which is pretty
Sure.
funny.
Yeah, and those are enhancements. I really feel that didn't hurt the ride.
Yeah.
And then, but I guess politically correctness came into play in some of that other stuff. And hey, that's that is what it is, and that's okay. Some people might agree, might disagree, but I don't think any of that really hurt the ride. It made it like, why did they do that, or get real upset about it? There's always going to be people that get upset about certain things, certain changes, and that's we're human. I get that, but and another kind of neat thing about the pirates. Um, when you go down the little waterfall there in the beginning, which is really quite brief, but it's dark, so you don't really know what's coming if you've never been on a ride.
Yeah.
You're basically just going underneath the railroad track. That's why they have it going down into that area to get you underneath
Okay.
the railroad track. So that's getting you outside what they call the berm, like they do in Disneyland. It's getting into a big warehouse that's outside the railroad track. And there's a great big warehouse. If you go on Google Earth, or Google Maps, you can see that big warehouse. That's where most of the ride is, in that big warehouse, much the same as a Haunted Mansion. It does it the same way, which is very common in most theme parks. They just have a facade in the beginning to kind of set the mood, and then it moves outside into a bigger building. So
Yeah, 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 that's what I've heard about Disneyland is you go down a lot quicker or something, Regan was saying, and
it's
then at the end you come back up a lot steeper or something. He because it's like almost initially you go down to go into this back, yeah, area. And
right, right.
there's really really cool for the listeners that haven't seen it already on Disney Plus like behind the attraction series, and this is one episode that you definitely want to watch. I don't think it's very long, but it kind of talks about the, behind the scenes of pirates, but also like all the different countries' pirates and how they came to be and the Imagineers. And they've done some really cool stuff. So they also have a pirates ride, obviously at Disneyland Paris, Tokyo Disneyland, and Shanghai Disneyland. And I've heard Shanghai Disneyland is like out of this world amazing, so cool, amazing effects. That's one that I really, really want to go on. So this is definitely one of my favorite rides in all of Disney World, all of Magic Kingdom, because it's just so well done. There's so much to look at. I mean, I should have looked up how many total animatronics there are in that ride, but I mean, hundreds. It's like crazy how many animatronics there are. And there's just always, something new. I feel like that you notice. It's a really good, well-paced ride. I feel like it rarely breaks down. Well, I shouldn't say that now it's going to break down. I've heard that people have been evacuated off it a lot more in recent years. I think it's just getting older, but I have never been stopped for long on that ride. Just at the end, sometimes there's a little bit of a, uh, I don't know what you'd call it, but like traffic jam, for lack of a better word.
Right. Yeah. Very common. And I think they might be getting somebody off that's, using a wheelchair or scooter or something. They have to,
Yeah.
spend a little more time getting that guest off. But yeah, many times I remember getting backed up. So you're sitting in front of the dog scene where they're whistling for the dog in front of the
Yeah, that's
jail.
right.
And I
Yeah.
guess that dog is basically the same mold or whatever. It's the same dog that's in Living with the Land. It's the same mold, and it's supposed to be molded after Walt Disney's dog, his
Oh,
actual
oh,
dog.
Carousel of Progress.
Carousel Progress, but actually in Living with the Land
Oh,
too in
living with the
Epcot.
land outside the
Yeah,
house?
yes,
Oh,
that's sitting on the
oh,
porch.
okay.
If you look at it, it's the same dog. It's kind of cool.
Okay. That
Yeah,
is cool. I didn't realize that.
kind of a cool thing. Those are all things that I figured out way back in the day with all these books that I was reading. Like, oh, well, I'll go look. Then you go looking for it. It's kind of fun to kind of see all that stuff. So
Yeah, and I liked that last scene that they added Jack Sparrow because I feel like as a kid it was kind of plain at the end there. And so I feel like everything they added with Jack Sparrow didn't take away from the scenes. It just kind of like added another little something to look at. And for fans of the movie, obviously it was super fun to look at too. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite attractions at Disney.
absolutely.
Um, and then the magic carpets of Aladdin. So this is the most recent attraction still, which is crazy that this is the most recent. They have not added anything since this, and it also was 25 years between Pirates and this ride opening. So a long time
Yes,
between
yes.
Adventureland getting anything new. I guess before this came, it was just like a bizarre area where they had shop like a shop or whatever, but there was really nothing else there. And so they decided to plant this right in the middle. And it was also quite a long time after Aladdin debuted. So it's funny that it took them this long to put this in there, but it was 9 years after the Aladdin movie came out. And then prior to this, they obviously had Dumbo and Astro Orbiter, so it's same ride vehicle for those of you who haven't been
Right.
on it.
Hub and
There's a
spoke, yeah.
very, yeah, there's a very annoying camel that spits water at you, so look out for that. I think that's why this ride, out of all the rotating rides like that, it's my least favorite because I don't like the camel, and I just feel like Dumbo is a classic, and Astro Orbiter is really cool because it's all the way up with really good views. But they do have this ride at Disneyland Paris and also at Tokyo Sea Disney, which surprised me that they brought it to other places since it's not super popular. But anything
I
else that you
agree.
have about this ride?
Uh, no, and I remember it real well before it was there. When we used to go there in the late '90s, it was just a place where they had tables where you could just sit out and eat. Get some food from, I guess, Aloha Isle or some of the other little, quick serve restaurants there. Get your Dole Whip and go sit at the
Yeah,
tables there. But right where the ride was, I think there was this big, um, like planter with a lot of different plants in it and stuff. Just kind of, there really wasn't much going on.
plain.
The tables weren't all that exciting. Yeah, I could see why they'd want to put something there. I wish they would have did something probably maybe a little more creative than a hub and spoke ride like they see in any theme park. But
Yeah,
um, it's well done, and the kids seem to like it. Yeah, I think you go up and down, and then I think it seats four, if
it
I remember
tilts.
right.
Yeah,
and
it
then
seats four. Uh-huh.
you can tilt it up, tilt it down, and okay, it's another ride, and Disney can say, hey, we got another new ride, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think all of
And no
us,
height requirement, which is something about
yeah,
Adventureland. All of Adventureland, there's no height requirement for anything.
that's true.
So, but and it is a very small space. So I really don't know what else they could have done there with that small of a space without totally
You're right.
redoing it.
Yeah, you're right.
Um, so yeah, it is. It's a cute ride for what it is, but yeah, I think it was like as a kid being like, this is what they're gonna put here, like that's all. Like it was a little disappointing, and we were probably just spoiled Disney kids.
Yeah.
I think most kids are like amazed by it, and we're just like, eh. Um, and then there's also a couple character meet and greet spots in the Adventureland area. Not many, but there's one over by Pirates where you can meet Jack Sparrow, which is really cool.
Mhm.
And then there's another one right by the magic carpets where they usually have Jasmine and Aladdin, but on occasion they also have the Genie and Jafar. And we've definitely done both of these meet and greets as young kids many
Yeah.
times, which is fun. Now my kids are getting into the age of meet and greets. Eileen's very into meeting whatever characters and getting stuff signed, and that's like a big deal, which was for us too with autograph books as kids. I still have a couple of my autograph books in my cedar chest, which are some
Great.
fun memories for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so now to kind of jump into the restaurants in Adventureland, which there aren't very many. Right now they really only have a couple quick service options. There's no actual sit down except for one, which I've never been to, but we'll see if you've been to it or not. I'm not sure. But there's really just the Sunshine Tree Terrace, which is a kiosk right when you walk in. They have some coffee, they have ice cream like floats. One which sounds really good that I've actually never gotten ice cream from here that I can remember, at least in a long time. There's one called the I Lava You float, which is Fanta strawberry soda, passion fruit flavor, soft serve Dole Whip, and topped with popping candy. I'm like, that sounds right up my alley. Like some Fanta, some popping candy, some ice cream. Obviously, you can get the classic Dole Whip here. And that's really all they serve. And then the Aloha Isle kiosk, which has been there forever, as well, that has a lot more float options. There's like pineapple floats, there's these pineapple upside down cakes, coconut cup of Dole Whip stuff. So all kinds of Dole Whip options, which this is like one of my Disney shame things. I've never had Dole Whip. Have you?
Actually, many times. Yeah,
Really?
I don't think we ever got them when you were young. We were too busy devouring Mickey bars, probably,
Yeah, yeah,
or you guys were big on the slushies.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember from
Launching
the
pad.
lunching pad?
Yeah.
Those are the big ones you guys like. But yeah, I've had them as an adult for a number of times. They're very good. Yeah,
Okay. I feel like now I need to try one. I feel like that needs to
yeah,
be high on my list.
you'd like it. Yeah, I think you'd like it.
And then there's also this spring roll snack cart, which is actually right outside of Adventureland, but everyone talks about this. They have these cheeseburger spring rolls and then pepperoni and cheese spring rolls. And everyone says they're so good. And Regan, I don't know if he said he's had the cheeseburger one or not, but I was like, I feel like I maybe want to try one of those. And then they added some breakfast things last year to that cart. But those are all obviously like kiosk, not even like really places to sit down and eat. But they do have a sit down restaurant in Adventureland, which I don't even know that I realized this was there, but I've heard people talk about it called the Skipper Canteen or like Jungle Navigation Co. Have you been here? Have you eaten here?
No, because I'm eating challenged and I'm really a fussy eater.
Yeah, me too.
My wife would probably love to go in there because she's a real foodie. She's Italian and she just, nothing really scares her. But all the reviews that I saw made me think, other than going in and seeing the restaurant and looking at I guess there's all kinds of things to see that the Imagineers put in there that are tied in with the Jungle Cruise. I guess it's
Yeah.
really well done. The theming is really cool. But the food for me, I'd probably go in there and get a Coke and that'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's for adventurous eaters. For everything I've heard, a place to go take kids, young kids would probably be a you know probably be a bit of a mistake. I would think. That's just my own
Yeah.
thought.
So they said when I was looking at the menu, because I had similar thoughts, I'm also a picky eater, but similarly, Maddie is not, and he likes to try different stuff. Not super out there stuff, but like he will try way more than I will. It's a pricey place. I mean, it said on average it costs you between 25 and $35 for a plate, but pretty
Yes.
good portions. And they have different flavors from Asia, South America, Africa, Latin flavors. There's three different rooms, I guess. There's a colonial era mess hall, like the cruise mess hall. There's Dr. Albert Fall's jungle room, and then the Once Secret Society of Explorers and the Adventure meeting room. And so there's, it's yeah, what I've heard as well is like the theming is incredible. They again, if you're into drinks, they have a lot of different drinks that you can try. And then the menu has a lot of things like house-made corn pancakes, beer braised pork appetizers, grilled steak, fish. And then it does say like they do have basic kid stuff like mac and cheese, but you're gonna pay a hefty price for that mac and cheese probably.
I
Um,
bet.
and then they also have things like coconut curry. I mean, it definitely sounds more adventurous than our typical cheeseburgers at Cosmic Ray's. So
Right.
yeah, it's but it does sound like a neat restaurant, like you're saying, environment wise.
Yes.
So definitely one that would be interesting to see, but I don't know that I would eat very much there on the menu, but definitely hear people speaking highly of it. And then I know they are refurbing over by Pirates of Tortuga Tavern, which had been seasonal, but now I think they're making into more of a regular thing, a little bit of like a nicer taverny bar kind of place for people, which is again not really my cup of tea, but a lot of people are looking forward to that. Um,
But let me just jump in there. Now, I read this today, and maybe it's inaccurate information that they've made that into a small gift shop.
so I think there is a gift shop, or maybe they're putting the tavern somewhere else. I know they're putting some kind of, hold on, while we're talking about this, let me look. Pirates of the
Yeah, because
Caribbean.
I was looking at, because it's a place that hardly it seemed like anybody ever really went. Every time I looked in
Yeah.
there, it was closed. It was a very seasonal operation the last probably 20 years. And it was kind of needed there. You could go in there and sit down and just, even if it was closed, it was like that seating was available for you to go sit down and pull some out of your backpack and have a snack or something or whatever, however you wanted to use it, take a break. It was under the roof and everything. So if it was raining or something, you could go in there. But I just never saw a lot of people in there eating the food there. I think they had pulled pork sandwiches and stuff for a while, and some taco stuff, tacos and things. Um,
Yeah. So that's
but it
what
was
I actually
small.
I pulled up this thing from D23 and it does say they did announce a new Pirates of the Caribbean lounge coming to Adventureland and Magic Kingdom.
Oh,
Um
cool.
and basically it's going to compare to Oga's Cantina, which is like a very popular one that people like to go to in I think it's in people are going to really shame me for not knowing this. I think it's in Hollywood Studios like in Star Wars land, I
Oh,
believe.
okay. Okay.
But it's coming. Let me see if it says exactly where it is, but somewhere over there. So maybe it's on the opposite side of. Yeah, it says one big detail that was shared during D23 is that the Pirates of the Caribbean Lounge will bring back the Barker bird, which is also known as Peg Leg Pete. And that figure was stationed outside of the entrance to the attraction. And as some people said, it was a barker who used lines and lyrics to attract the guests' attention. So I guess that was removed when they added Jack Sparrow and all this other stuff, but this will bring it back into this lounge. Um, but yeah, there's not a lot of other information. They just like have some concept art and stuff, but it does look like it'll be like a cool little place to like kind of hang out. I think you'll have to have like a reservation to get in. But yeah, so Tortuga Treasures is the name of the
Okay.
gift shop. So you're right. So I
Okay.
guess this must be somewhere else over there somehow,
It's
which
probably
is
it's a kind of a big area, so maybe they made half of it into
like
Tortuga
a
Treasures,
lounge.
and then the other part's going to be the lounge or something. Another neat thing about that, and I know as we slowly slide over into Frontierland, as you go in heading toward Frontierland inside Tortuga Tavern, there's like a walkway. Have you been down that walkway that takes you down into the Pecos Bill restaurant? It's kind of a
Not in a
backwards up.
long time.
Yeah, and there's some tables before you get to that walkway that kind of goes downhill to Pecos Bill. It's inside. Not too many people know about it. And there's some tables there where you can just sit, and it's got a view of the right across from Parts of the Caribbean. And you kind of there's only like two or three tables in there, but we used to sit in there all the time just to get some peace and quiet a little bit. It's a little quieter, and nobody
Okay.
really knows about it. It's kind of a neat little place to hang out and have lunch or something, or just get a snack or just rest. And I know my wife Doreen and I many times, hey, let's just stay here and hang out for a while. Maybe it was raining outside and needed to take a break or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
kind of a neat little area. Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, I don't think I knew about that. That's cool. Or if I did, it's been a long time since we've done that. We've eaten at Pecos Bill in during Halloween parties in the past actually,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not a lot in recent years.
Right.
Okay, so to wrap up Adventureland, let's talk about rankings of attractions. So there's the five attractions. There was Swiss Family Robinson, Jungle Cruise, Tiki Room, Pirates, and Carpet. So my order for attractions, I think, would actually maybe surprise some people, but number one is Pirates for sure. Number two is actually the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse. I think number three would be Jungle Cruise. Number four would be Tiki Room, and last would be the Poor Carpets. That would be, I think, my ranking order. What do you think yours would be?
Of course, Pirates would have to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably have to give the Jungle Cruise the nod second and then go to the Treehouse, even though both I like a lot. I really, being a guy that likes humor and puns, and I'm the big jokester at work.
Yeah.
I like the skipper. That's something I guess if I had a job at Disney in the Magic Kingdom and being a cast member, being a Jungle Cruise skipper would probably be the perfect fit for me. But I like that for that reason. And then of course the Tiki Birds, and then Carpets of Aladdin. And if I never go on those again, I'll probably be just fine.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like carpets we have to do for ride challenge, but otherwise I don't think. Well, it's funny. Eiley actually really wanted to. We went on that one Halloween when there was absolutely nobody over there, and I think it was one of those things where we were on it, and they're like, "Do you want to just stay on again?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so we just like went around again,
Oh,
because there
sure.
was like
Yeah,
absolutely no one over there. But
right.
yeah, definitely not my favorite. And then as far as old versus new for Adventureland, so. Which version do you prefer? Do you prefer the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management with Yago and Zazu or the original show?
I'd have to go with the original show, even though, when you were young, we took you and Regan. That's the show we all kind of remembered as a family. But the fact that Walt was so involved with that, and it was like one of the first original animatronics with the birds and stuff, got to go with
Yeah.
that one.
Okay, and I'm gonna pick the opposite. I'm gonna pick Enchanted Tiki Room under new management just because I really love that show with nostalgia as a child going all the time. Definitely that is my favorite version of it. But I think the other one, obviously being a classic, it's easy to pick either one. But yeah, I think I would pick the under new management just for the nostalgia factor. And then our trivia question for our Frontierland is a pirate's quote, and it's to fill in the missing word from the quote. So there's a quote that one of the pirates is talking about during the ride, I guess, and it says, "You will never blank the fort." Is it capture the fort, seize the fort, take the fort, or conquer the fort? Capture, seize, take, or conquer. What do you think it is?
To be brutally honest, I have no idea, even
Me
though I've been
either.
on it 7,000 times. I thought I knew all the lines from this attraction. I'll say C's, 'cause that sounds kind of like something they would say back then.
I'm gonna say capture. Let's see. Oh no, it's take. You will never take the fort. We were both wrong.
Okay.
Okay, I did not know that. We learned something
Didn't know
new
that.
today. See, you
Yeah,
can teach old dogs new tricks like us.
that's right.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode. We are going to dive right into our next section of Frontierland, but that will come out next week, technically. So thanks for listening along, and we are going to see y'all next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into our old versus new debates. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. And for our Spotify listeners, a follow and a 5-star review would mean the world. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time.